This is not a success story. It is a documentation of my first attempt at a resin bloom and what I learned during the process. I set out to make my first set of resin blooms in this small hexagonal mold and this larger guitar pick mold. I hope that the variations of the shapes will give me an understanding of how blooms work. I have already made markings on my mixing container. Let's mix our resin first. I will slowly mix the resin till it becomes clear and runny. Since I'll be using the same resin mix for both the blooms, I will get a peek into how much influence the resin viscosity has on their making. Let's keep this aside to degas for 5 minutes. The first bloom has a bluish monochromatic color palette, uses crushed glass glitter and pigment powder, and a general plan on how I will proceed. Our second bloom has an orangish color scheme. While the resin degasses, I will quickly prepare my guides to help me create the bloom petals later in the process. For this, I used the profile of the mold and folded it along 3 axes of symmetry to find the center. Then, I highlighted these creases so that they are visible from under my silicone mat. One final cleanup to make sure that the surface is dust-free and ready for resin pouring. This is the base layer. I will fill the mold halfway because I need to leave some space for the volume of the resin which will make the blooms and the background which will be added later. Let's put some resin aside in a separate container for the bloom petals. The resin continues to degas more efficiently once poured into the coaster mold because of the lesser depth. My petal mix looks a little light, so I will add some more white alcohol ink to it. Now, let's highlight the center of this composition with a little crushed glass glitter. The guidelines help me locate the center accurately. The crushed glass glitter has hues that match the bluish color scheme. These will eventually sink to the bottom, so I will guide them now so that they are evenly spread without clumping. I feel like the resin level is too low, so we'll top this up. Time to ink the surface, the darkest color first, right in the center. Next is a lighter color to create the contrast. I will dot a ring around the center using my guidelines to drop the ink. It seems that the layer of epoxy which I added later is really messing with the alcohol ink spreading evenly across the surface. Maybe this boundary will blur over time. Now the third color for the outer ring. This seems to be a darker color. Maybe I feel this color should have been more towards the center. I might have made a mistake in the layering. The alcohol inks seem to be contracting instead of expanding, and I am very confused. This does not look like what I've seen other artists doing. Maybe my inks have gone dry and they don't have much alcohol, or is it because of the epoxy ring which I added later? If they are dry, maybe adding a little more alcohol will help. Let's relax these colors a little with a tiny dab of alcohol to their centers. Now, this step is experimental and is clearly increasing the gap. I will give this a little swirl, but the gradient seems broken. Let's add a little ink and complete the gap in the color composition. I might have gotten carried away with the whole inking process. The canvas looks really busy. Maybe there is too much ink? We'll find out soon, so let's pour the white resin mix for now. While I'm pouring, I have a feeling that my speed is very fast. Other artists seem to be moving much slowly during this stage. Also, my resin seems to have completely sunk without a trace. Anyway, let's make the petals before they dissipate, and we'll just have to wait and watch. While making this swirl, I might have destroyed the delicate petals. In fact, I'm pretty confident that this bloom is a lost cause, and so I'm going to move into full experimental mode. Let's go for another 3 petals and strengthen the center a little more. Finally, one more layer of alcohol, just to see what happens when I do. I can see everything is getting blurred. Anyways, what's done is done. Let's see how this turns out now. I'm going to leave this to cure, but before that I'm just going to run my toothpick along the edge to get rid of any edge bubbles. I should have probably done this right at the start after I poured the base layer. If this was not a bloom project, I would be very happy with the way the inks are moving around here, but this is a bloom project. Now for the next bloom. I will use the rest of the resin, which is slightly more viscous overall than when we poured it into our blue. Let's mark the center of our bloom with some crushed glass glitter. Now, I'm just adding a few drops of isopropyl alcohol on the surface before adding the ink here. The darkest color goes in the center. Then we dot the rest of the surface with a lighter yellow color. The colors don't seem to be moving much here, so I will nudge it in the same way as the blue coaster. This time I will not go overboard with the swirling. The wait is over. My anticipation is at an all-time high. This looks absolutely fantastic, but I don't see the bloom anywhere. It looks like the flames are emanating from the center. This is not a bloom. It is a total blooming failure, but it does look gorgeous. I wish I had not put that shiny glitter in the middle because this flamey look has a soft feel and this glitter is breaking the flow. Let's put it on this white background and have a better look. The darkest colors have been pushed to the edge, creating this interesting border. It looks like the kind of fire which comes out from a magician's wand. Everything seems to be radiating towards the edges, and this background is also beautiful. In the future, if I made a galaxy-inspired composition, this is how I would do it. I will finish this coaster with a domed background. Let's sand off some of this raised edge to make it a little even first. I will dome this with epoxy resin, which is already slightly viscous. Let's give this a light blue background to match the color scheme. In keeping with the spirit of learning, let's try something new here. I'm going to add the pigment directly to the resin and mix it right here while doming it. First, let's deal with the edges. Once I've done that, I can just concentrate on mixing the pigment. I'll take a call if I want to evenly color the whole surface or create a gradient from the center as I work the pigment into the resin. Let's spread this pigment out and see how it goes. I have no idea how this will turn out because I've never really done something like this. I had once used this technique to finish the back of a pendant, but that was on a really small scale. I am mixing the resin dirty like this because the difference in the intensity of pigments here and there creates this really nice uneven texture. There is a lot of play in the colors, and even though the resin seems to have ripples here, it will get evened out and will level beautifully over time. Of that, I am confident. I think I saved this coaster. The other side will always remind me of my failed bloom, but this surface is looking fabulous right now. Initially, I had planned that there will be a gradient of color from the center to the edge, and I had considered leaving the edge clear as an option, but I have decided that going all the way to the edge is the way to go. I'm going to just deal with some of the surface bumps along the edge with my toothpick and pop any pigment cluster which has not mixed with the resin. Now, there is a lot of bubbles in this resin because of all the mixing. Let's help them escape with a little help from my heat gun. Now, we let this cure. Back to our orange story. This is just like our blues. The blooms don't seem to obviously pop out on this side, and I can see a lot of swirling colors happening, but that is unintentional. Okay, the whites are a lot more intense in this one, so I suppose this is a result of the increased viscosity of the resin. This time the edges have been made interesting by these white blobs. I'm going to dome the other surface. I'll sand this edge off and give this an orange background matching the color scheme. I could have skipped this step, but I prefer to sand it down like this. It makes for a better grip and detailing of the edge. The technique will be the same as our blues. First, I'm going to top this off with resin, which has been sitting for a while. The best thing about doming with viscous resin is even when you push it towards the edges, the chance of the resin pouring over is very less. The self-leveling tendency pulls the resin right back even if you push it over the edge. The viscosity does its doming magic. Now, it's time to add our pigment, which will be yellowish orange in color so that it matches the color scheme. I'm going to swirl it around a little and try to create some abstract patterns before we let it cure. This process is really therapeutic for me. My coaster has cured. These pigments are looking fabulous with all the little squiggles, and I am really happy that the mixing pattern stayed. It is shimmery and beautifully swirly. The dome is perfect. There is a lot of depth. You can see the layers of colors and the background of blues really bringing it all together. I feel the background is equally spectacular by itself. This blue edge created by accident is working beautifully to give this wispy look a definite boundary. Back to our orange story, look at that. Another base which is better than the front. The pigment dome is a total hit here also. Love the definition of the white along the edge, and the layering of colors look great. This composition is on fire. Though my blooms flopped, this technique of doming was a roaring success. My coasters are reversible. I was so excited to work on my first resin bloom. After working with smaller projects like pendants and charms, I finally felt confident enough to tackle a larger surface with greater depth. But it was a bust. I will try again. But before I move on to a new and improved version of the bloom, let's review the potential reasons why this bloom went bust. Pouring this ring of clear epoxy layer almost 5 minutes after the first pour might have distorted the integrity of the base layer. This is not a mistake in the bloom technique, but an aesthetic preference. I would have liked the lightest color to be the farthest from the center. This ring of alcohol drops might have pushed the darker color towards the rim of the coaster. The viscosity is a little low here. I might have poured it 5 minutes too early. The stream was not thick enough. The pour needed to be slower. I think this was the straw that broke the camel's back, made the whole bloom become too nebulous. My orange bloom made it clear that it was the excess alcohol which tampered with the surface tension and disintegrated the blooms into flames. The white resin was too close to the edge and did not have any room to expand. If you noticed something I missed, do let me know. Notes have been taken and lessons learned. Thank you for watching all the way. See you in my next Better Bloom video. Happy crafting and have a wonderful day.